Hellblade 2 is an incredibly vivid and deep story about the pain of psychosis and how we all contain both good and evil, just waiting to break out. It also has 35 incredibly annoying collectibles to gather that is tied to 2 achievements. I will be calling them trees and lore markers so that I don't butcher the Scandinavian language. Unlike the first game, these 2 sets of collectibles don't really add anything substantial to the narrative. Also, if you do miss one, you don't have to start the game all over. There is a chapter select screen where you can even pick sub-chapters within, snag it real quick, and you won't even lose any of your progress of your game. So let's start with Chapter 1. This is the very first lore marker. You're not going to miss it. This introduces you to the look of these, where you can find them, and basically what you're going to be looking for. As you play the game, you'll search far and wide for these particular markers, and yeah, it's very simple. This is the only collectible that you get in Chapter 1. Now, heading into Chapter 2, before you go down to the Draugr-infested village, you're going to pass a homestead that has some dead cows in it, and to the left-hand side, just behind here, Senua and her Furies are going to make mention that there seems to be a lore marker here. This is the first lore marker of Chapter 2. There's 4 lore markers and 2 faces to find. The next lore marker you'll find inside the Draugr village after you've passed the first area. On the left-hand side, right through here, you'll find another one hidden away. It's a really good, again, introduction of the type of collectibles you'll be looking for. If we continue from that point, we'll find the very first tree. I know, again, that's not what they're called, but that is what I'm calling them. So we're just going to follow the way in which we came, come up through here. Some very scary and even disturbing stories. I don't know if you caught it at the very beginning, but there's one with a mother and her baby that is just very, very rough. And here, this is going to be exactly what you're looking for. You just got to focus on that, these hidden faces that you find in the mountains. And then when you walk into it, if my character Senua was smart enough to do that, you'll find these trees. And that is the other set of collectibles to look for in the game. All right, on to the next one. You don't get to this one until you're actually in the Draugr campsite where they attack. It is, again, one of the more disturbing parts of the game. We're going to head down here and very carefully head to the left-hand side. You'll remember all these visual cues as you're going down. And continue past here. There's a fork in the road, as you see. Whenever there is a fork in the road, generally, you want to take both forks and test it out, because 9 times out of 10, that is going to be a collectible. Sometimes they're trying to fake you out, and it's incredibly annoying. But fortunately, in this case, we did find it. It's more in Chapter 5 when you're trying to find some of these faces where you just want to die because you miss something that seems so obvious. All right, this next one is after you're done with the Draugrs. We're continuing and following our new friend that we saved. This is before we get back to the village that we first went through, the destroyed village. This was a tricky one. I wasn't able to find these 2 the very first time. So take your time. And again, you can always go back to the chapters to look for it. So there we go. That is our next lore marker. And we'll continue down the path here. And these 2 can get a little confusing, so sometimes that'll happen before the other. It depends on the trajectory you're getting down the hill. But again, when you see that cross in the road, just go to the left-hand side and you will find this hidden tree. We are heading now to the next chapter, Chapter 3, which has 6 lore markers and 5 faces. A lot to look through here. Let's find the very, very first one. It's right after you walk into the village. And if you go to the right-hand side, you'll find this particular tree, if we can find him in there. Yep. And then if you go to the left-hand side of that opening, you'll find both a tree and a lore marker. Can be a little hard to find, and again, really for me, took me out of the narrative experience, but there you go from afar. Just focus on that. Very, very easy. And we'll find our pretty little tree. Once again, if you miss any of these, very, very easy to go back into the chapter select and not actually lose any of your progress. This is going from that tree we just saw to the left-hand side. And as you can see, I missed the very clear lore marker right in front of me. I'm not sure what I was thinking there. But boom. Found that easy. And now to the next one. This is after you get to the village that's at the very top of the mountain that's hiding from the giants. Don't go down the path. Go all the way around. You'll see some settlers talking. Then you'll find this lore marker. Now, for this next section, it's very hard to determine where all these are. So you really just have to look for visual cues. You're going to be doing a lot of different puzzles here that involves change in perspective. So just really focus on the framework of around here. See if there's any stones that look familiar. And once again, if there's a cross in the road, go that other crossing and you will find a collectible. This one is one of the easier ones, but there's one in chapter 5 that just took me hours and hours. So hopefully this will make it a little easier for you. As you can see, I didn't even find that second one yet, but we did. We got it here, so you don't have to worry. All right, let's continue down this path. As you saw, there's those little eggshell things, those seashells to go through. And if you do that on the left-hand side coming up here, you will see, excuse me, right-hand side, you'll see another one of our stone buddies going through here. If you are interested in the story that's being told by all these collectibles, I've included the completed tale for both the lore markers and the trees at the end of the video. Now let's continue through here. This is before we reach the tunnels where the hidden folk are. In case that helps a little bit, we'll look on both sides. We're supposed to go down that little narrow opening, but instead went to the left. Didn't see anything here, even though clearly I should be able to walk there. I think that's a pretty big design flaw. Through the skinny opening and through another opening, and we will find the next lore marker. All right, now we are in one of the final areas. There's two different sides to get the last collectibles here before we go down into the tunnels. Follow this path well traveled. In video game logic, if you see something that's a different color on the stones, that means they're usually interactable, and there you go. We have the new thing here. We'll get this tree. Bang, bang, boom. Seems like there's a lot left, but there really isn't. These last few are pretty easy, so we're back to where we were. Except this time he went on the left-hand side, followed through this small little opening here. It feels like in the game, the Furies, the voices in Senua's head, are always talking to you, but for some reason, for most of these collectible journeys, they aren't really, which is kind of odd. It makes it seem a lot more lonely. Going through that. All right, and this was one that I missed. This is right before we enter that final puzzle where you go under the lake. Just look for that opening that I went through in this darker area. If you are missing a lore marker with the Z there, I was. So that was good to grab that one. Again, very, very easy to grab any of the ones you might have missed by just going back to the chapter select and picking an area. So this is actually in one of the puzzles, one of the upside down areas. You have to use the, I don't know what you want to call them, the water droplets to change the perspective. That's where we grabbed one of the stones. And if you are missing one, chances are you could be missing this one because it was upside down in that area. All right, chapter 4. We're in the caves. Now, I was really, really worried about getting all of the collectibles in these caves. Fortunately, almost all of them are right early on. Oh, there we go. Almost right at the beginning, you'll get this one. So if you are worried you'll have to do those sequences with the, I don't know, water ghouls, we'll call them, again and again, you absolutely do not have to. So that is the first one. Let's continue through the beginning area where we still have the torch and we haven't really done any of the puzzles yet. As you can see, we saw a lore marker in there. We'll continue down and down, going through. If you hear a light munching in the background, that is my dog chewing on a bone. I thought the audio might work for this kind of eerie area. We'll continue through the side here. And up and around. Oh, nearly there. Up and around once again. Retrospect, this would definitely call for some fast forwarding, but let's enjoy each other's company. All right, so that was an easy grab. This is much later when we get the ability to, what would you call it, extinguish and ignite these magical torches and campfires. So we do that, and that changes the scenery to get through some of these puzzles. Look back to where we were, and you'll see a face. I don't know why I missed it right there. A face hidden in the stone. There's not too many after this, and again, most of them we've already done, so you don't have to worry about going through the very, very tedious areas with the water ghosts again and again. I was really worried I missed something there, but I didn't. So this is one of the very easy to miss ones. You fall down here with Senua. You're supposed to go forward, but instead, video game logic, gotta go backwards. What do you see? A little face winking right at you. Perspective changes, and we will find one of the last trees in this area. Not the last one, but one of the last ones. Continuing through the maze, through the tunnel. This particular lore marker I had some issues with. If you aren't able to get down here, it's very visual. You can see it right away. Go ahead and access the pool that has the water droplets. That can really work, but for me, it was easy. This is after we passed all of those scary ghouls, and you're getting close to the, I guess, home of the hidden folk. Very easy to find beside those floating rocks. Almost getting there, and let's see what else we have next. Oh, yes, and this was just a little bit ahead of that. Again, past all of the very difficult and, in my opinion, unnecessary puzzles that were in that area. And we will grab a lore marker. Okay, we are now entering the final chapter here that has these particular collectibles in it. There's still more chapters to the game. So I was looking at something beautiful right behind me. Wouldn't you know it? There is your very first tree behind the stone face in this particular chapter. Going through here, and again, it's the same one where we'll see where we went from there to get to the lore marker. Head up here, and this level in particular has so many stone faces that are intentionally supposed to look pretty similar to a stone face, but aren't one. And in the next area, you'll see it. It is just the worst. So if I can save you even a minute or two not going back and forth through an area that you have to go through the whole area again, then I have done my job, and it's worth the price of admission here. So let's go through, and just through here. Of course, you can do this the other way. You don't have to get any of these collectibles in this sequence. So this is just the easiest way to show you. All right, so this is when we are going through the stone area with the female that we met. Her name is a little difficult to say. This one face, so hard to find. Absolutely hated it. look for those white stones through the little crack that you need to squeeze to get to this tree. It was just the absolute worst. It's pretty early on when it's just you and her, so hopefully that saved you a little bit of time. It was just the worst. All right, we'll continue here as we're following our friend. This is when you get to the rather large opening. Before this, everything was pretty closed in. Surprisingly, there's only one collectible, so if you do enter that area and you think, oh man, this will be where all the stone faces are, you are incorrect. I didn't see that very obvious alcove there. Not sure why. Continuing up here. And we'll grab this lore marker. We're getting very, very close to the end. And originally I thought this would contribute to the narrative. It does not. It's just a little side thing. All right, once you pass through a particular puzzle, right behind you, you'll find this one. It's the puzzle that tells you to go to the sea to get the name of the storm giant. It's just behind you there, so very, very easy to get to if I can actually find where the tree is. Oh, there she blows. And the next one, yeah, so this is at the puzzle on the waterfront. This is when you go down trying to get the very last, what would you call it, signal to get through the door. This you're supposed to make into a stone to walk across. You can actually walk through it, and then inside you will find not one but two collectibles that I think a lot of people will miss. This is in the far right area. So you'll know it when you see it. It's a whole new place that you have to go to get the final sign once again. So we'll slowly go here. Another lore marker. We're almost there, folks. If you've stuck with me this far, congratulations. And then right behind me, very hard to miss as you're coming back in the tunnel, see another winking face, and we are getting closer. We are nearly there. Couple more turns and shifts, and we will be home free for those achievements. Again, nothing for the narrative, which was deeply disappointing, and I would not have done this had I known. All right, this is after you find out his name and you go back to the village searching for your new friend. A little hard to find, but if you head to the right-hand side when going down, and as you saw, those fences there, it's a little easier. There's the torch there. If you look right beside it, you will see the second last face leading to the tree. The final two are actually hidden in its own pathway. So when you are heading back to the home of our new friend, if you head behind the homes to this little area here, it should ding. We should get what we're looking for. There we are. So that is the first achievement for all of the lore markers. And we are nearly there for the last one. So once you hear that, we will now follow this step here. Go whence you came. Oh, I clearly went the wrong way there. Not realizing that, oh, maybe I wouldn't have to redo the whole level if I did go this way. Follow those signal flames, which usually mean there is a face, and once that cracks open, we have our final collectible. So there you have it. Those are all of the collectibles in Hellblade 2. Now we will see the narrative stories that are left from all these collectibles.
Do not forget my stories, Senua. I am with you still. Out of hell you have come, and now find yourself in Midgard, the world of men. Do not think it any less dangerous for that. Your path has taken you far from home, across the boundless sea, and you must go on to the heart of this place, to the heart of man. You have seen how the Northmen journey out to conquer, and this is one of their lands. as icy dark as Niflheim, yet as fiery as Muspel. It has not long been claimed, and they try still to tame it. The Skald's verse speaks of a man called Grettir the Strong. A strange and bloody life he led. And it happened in this land you have come to. Listen to his story, Senua, for it may in some small way illuminate your own. The Skalds say that in Grettir's time, a nearby farm was plagued by hauntings. A shepherd called Glamour was killed by some evil force, found dead in the snow, bloated and black. His body could not be taken to burial, because he was held fast to the ground. So it was left. 3 days after his death, the body was missing. The Skalds tell how the revenant Glamour roamed the settlements, terrifying all those who lived there. Each one he killed, in turn, rose to walk beside him. Thus, evil begets evil. But the man Grettir was proud and overbearing, and thought the Droiger no match for his strength. The Skalds say that Grettir fought and killed the Droiger Glamour, but not before Glamour had cursed him. His strength would be turned against him, his deeds bring death and exile, and he would be always before Grettir's eyes, making him afraid to be alone. He saw all sorts of phantoms wherever he looked, and thus people who see things that aren't there are said to have Glamour's eyes. The Skalds tell how in the time of Grettir's kinsman Thorgrim, there was a terrible famine. No crops could be grown, and the fish fled the nets. It lasted years, and the people were desperate. There was no respite even in spring, since terrible gales from the north would rise up and set in for weeks. This is a cold and unforgiving land, Senua. In the time of famine, at the place known as Rifskar, Thorgrim found a huge finback whale, beached and dead. His neighbor, Thorfinn, had already found it and was in the process of flensing it. But Thorgrim claimed it as his own. Thorfinn said he would not give it up without a fight. If that's what you want, Thorgrim said, let it be so. And he launched a blow at Thorfinn, cutting off his head in one strike. The Skalds say that the neighbors fought, armed only with the knives and axes they had brought to cut up the whale, even picking out the whale ribs to beat down their enemies. Thorgrim's men had loaded their boats with whale meat, but as they went to leave, one of their opponents struck Thorgrim's brother a fatal blow. And this is how hunger fates desperate men to come to blows, striking out against one another to survive. The Skalds speak of the time Grettir, traveling with some others, ran into rough weather and docked their boat on an island. They had not brought fire with them, and the merchants complained bitterly. Seeing a great fire blazing on the other side of the strait, Grettir said he would swim over to fetch it. He took off his clothes and struck out across the water, wearing nothing but a cloak. When Grettir came to the farm where the fire was burning, all was peaceful. By the time he reached them, his cloak was frozen stiff, and he looked like nothing more than some huge troll. The frightened farmhands struck out at him with the first things to hand, the burning logs from the fire. Grettir fought them off and got the fire he sought. But the sparks from the logs spread fire all over the house, and nobody survived the blaze. The Skalds say that Grettir swam back across the strait, keeping the fire safe from the water. His friends applauded Grettir's bravery, but when word spread about the massacre at the farm, people took against Grettir. Nobody wanted anything to do with him, and when the news reached the Althing in the summer, Grettir was pronounced an outlaw. All doors would hence be shut to him. The Skalds speak of how Grettir, now an outlaw, took rest on the island of Haramsoy with a man called Audun. Grettir saw a great yellow glow like a fire rising from the ground. Audun told him it was coming from the burial mound of Kar the Old, who ever since he died had haunted the island, and warned him to stay away. The Skalds say Grettir wanted the sword that was buried in Kar's howe, and would not be deterred from seeking it. He broke the mound open and started digging until he reached the timber props. By this time it was night. Audun warned him again not to continue, but Grettir threw down a rope and went inside the mound. No light penetrated it, and it reeked of death. But he persisted in exploring. Grettir found the sword he was seeking, Kar's loom, buried in the grave mound. He went to leave, but before he could reach the rope, something grabbed him from behind, and Grettir realized the mound dweller would not let his treasure go. The two fought ferociously until Grettir got the advantage and chopped off the revenant's head. But Kar's loom would prove his undoing, fated to be the sword that killed him. The Skald's verse tells how Grettir made many enemies with his proud and overbearing nature. Always quick to anger, his strength and fighting prowess meant that even the most trivial of quarrels met a fatal end. The kinsmen of those he killed or maimed were angry, and because he was an outlaw, no one was allowed to help him. The outlaw Grettir fled to the island of Drangi. His enemies knew he was there, but he was still so strong and fierce, nobody could shift him. Thorbjorn, first among his foe, sent his foster mother to see Grettir. She was a Seithkona and very wily. She enchanted a tree branch and sent it to wash up on Drangi. Grettir tried to cut it up for firewood, but his axe flew back and struck him in the leg. The wound blackened and festered, and Grettir feared his time was close. The Skalds say Grettir, wounded by Seidr, was now so weak it was possible for his enemies to defeat him. Under cover of night, Thorbjorn and his men attacked his shelter. They tried to disarm him, but he clung so firmly to his sword, Kar's loom, that they had to cut off his arm to get it free. Then they used his sword to cut off his head, and the land's mightiest outlaw was dead. As the Droigar glamour had predicted, all Grettir's brave and fine deeds brought him misery. So fate makes prisoners of us all. But it was Grettir's nature that made him fight the Droigar. And Grettir's nature that led to blood feud and exile. So what is truly our prison, Senua? Is our path ordained, and we powerless to change it? Or do we blame uncertain powers for what we ourselves ordain?
In all the places of the earth, they know that the gods and spirits affect man's path. All the misfortune that befalls man lies at their feet. If you have eyes to see, you see their presence and their power. Keep your eyes open, traveler, and you might see their faces. Here, they once said that Loki lies imprisoned in a cave, trapped by his enemies, who set a serpent above to drip venom on his face. His wife, Sigyn, sits beside to catch the venom in a bowl, but when she must leave to empty it, the poison falls unabated. His pain is so great that he thrashes and writhes. And here above, we see the earth shake and break apart. Across the sea, they know that the earth is carried in the arms of a giant. When he is vexed or injured, he may not carry his burden so gently, and the world will feel his anger and pain. In a land far away, they say the winds are trapped inside the earth. They try always to make their escape, and they buffet and beat on the walls of their prison, causing the earth to quiver. And when they break through, they make their escape. They explode out in fury. In the lands of your birth, people live hidden too, in the hills and stones. They may be the remnants of a godly race who lost a war with giants and, finding the world changed, retreated into silence. But you still see their carvings and circles from the time when they walked among men. Here, they know that if times are harsh, you may ask of the hidden folk to share their bounty. And if you are strong and wise and good, they may hear your plea and send you aid. But if you are not, or if you do not respect the strictures they lay down, you might have your strife doubled. In the lands of your birth, and in these lands too, they know that people can be taken by the secret fair ones. If you are not careful and do not keep to the pathways, you may find yourself among them. In a land to the east, they know that when a traveler finds themselves lost, it is the fault of the Vadadash, who wait at the crossroads to trick souls passing by. The only remedy is to let your horse lead you home, because beasts have no souls. But if you have no horse, your soul is lost forever. In this place, they know that sometimes the hidden folk will take their children and leave another in their place. These children may look the same as their own, but will be dazed and far away, or ill-tempered. And you know then you have a changeling in your house. In this land, and people cannot raise their children, they will leave them in a sacred place for the hidden folk to take and care for. Sometimes, these children are changed, with a wildness in their eyes, and their parents do not want them. These people know that children who have died uncared for can return as Ultburður, small ghosts clad in fluttering rags. When there are storms, they may cry as they did when they were human, and will look for their mothers until they find them, and never leave them again. In this land, you may catch sight of the Landisir, the spirits who embody the sacred places, the rivers and rocks. Do you see the Lady of the Mountain, the Fjall Konan, who bathes in the waterfall and lets the drops fall on her shoulders? In the heart of the Northlands, they know the storms are born of the Oshkurreidi, the hunt of Odin. The huntsmen ride horses with eyes of fire. Their weapons clash like thunder, and it is best to hide inside, lest your spirit be called to join them. In your lands, traveler, they know that the Kailif, the hag of winter, is the one who hurls sleet and snow upon the land. She lives in a sea rock and rules the waves of the roiling winter ocean with her blackthorn staff. She strikes the ground to destroy the shoots of growing green, so the winter will lie long and low on the land. These people know that the sea god, Ran, sets out nets to trap sailors and drag them to her world. She sends the waves, her daughters, to wreck boats so she will have more men to take. And jealously, she pulls them down beneath the water. People here speak of warriors who can transform themselves into bears when they are enraged. Their skin becomes hide so thick no sword or spear can break it. When King Hrolfr fought Skald, many people saw a great bear fighting beside him, who killed more men with its paw than any 5 soldiers. Men here will tell of how Jarl Hakon worshipped the giant Thorgerða and sought her aid in the middle of battle when the tide was turning against him. Fleeing to an island, he pleaded with her for aid. She demanded a sacrifice. She rejected all of his offerings until he, at last, killed his own son in sacrifice. Thorgerða gave aid, and Hakon's enemies saw the giants striding amongst the ships, arrows flying from every finger and never missing their mark. Their morale was sapped, and Hakon won his battle.